panic sell your completionist or trimmed completionist game. No, I'm joking. This is not an FSOA situation, but there are going to be some changes to both completion escapes in the future with the upcoming Ninja completion escape strike. And I think it's good to discuss them because there's some changes to it that are, well, let's just talk about it. Yo, what's going on guys? My name is Chevalric and today we're going to be talking about something that no one in the Runescape community is talking about because they're all plebs and don't have a completionist or trim completion escape and just PVM all day. I'm joking, I love all you guys, like seriously, I do. But we're going to be talking about the upcoming completionist and trim completion escape changes. If you're not aware of what's going on, recently Jagex has posted a big Reddit thread, which if you want to read in full, but we'll go over in this video in a bit less detail, because otherwise this video will be 20 minutes long. But if you want to read the full thread, I'll put it in the link in the description. But they announced that there's gonna be a full ninja strike, completionist strike, whatever you want to call it, on the completionist and trim completion escape, removing, adding and changing some requirements around on both capes. So let me know in the comment section down below, do you agree with these changes? Do you not agree with these changes? What do you think should be added or removed? I mean, they might see this video and they might, you know, read the comments and be like, hey, that's actually a good idea, because they're actually looking for feedback. Believe it or not, there is going to be a poll. Yes, you heard that right. A poll for some of these changes. We'll be talking about all of them in this video. If you're going to enjoy it, definitely leave a like. As I said, join in the discussion in the comment section down below. Subscribe if you're new. Join my Twitch streams. I'm live every single day at 6 p.m. game time. And without further ado, let's just get into it. So first things first, what is happening? Mainly the completionist and trim completion escape is going to be changing because they feel like some of the requirements that are on there are a bit arbitrary or are even outdated, like preparing assault. We'll get into that in just a moment. But overall, they're going to be adding, removing, and changing some requirements around. So I think one of the big ones that is being removed, as I just mentioned, is Barbarian Assault. Because they found that the majority of people that wanted to do it or were able to do it either had to do it on Spotlight, which is very limited, via Barbarian Assault Horns, or they had to do leeching services. And if they obviously hate one thing at Jagex, it's leeching services. They will always exist, but if that's one of the main methods to be able to do it, and I know a lot of people are going to comment because they do it when I talk about it on stream or when I talk about it on Twitter, like, oh yeah, you can find groups. Oh yeah, you can do it on Spotlight. Oh, it's not completely dead. I know you can, but for example, a friend of mine for a very long time could only play in like the morning hours and the early afternoon European hours. There was no one online. So the only time he could play, there was no one doing a Barbarian Assault. So should he just not get his trim completion escape? Well, he had to, you know, maybe get some leeching services done to be able to get it. And I think, in my personal opinion, and that will go through this entirety, I feel like because completionist and trimmed completion escape are both fully personal goals, because they have only a cosmetic appearance, there's nothing more to it, there's no stats, there's not best in slot, there's nothing to it. I think that they should just completely be a soloable thing in a group game. I know, go watch my group content is dying or is dead or whatever the video is called. I'll put it in the cards and link in the description if you're really interested in it, because if I go to explain that as well in this video, holy moly. But let's move on with some of the other requirements. Chompy Massacre and Walk by the Wildy side, so getting 100 Wildy Flash events. Those two that are being removed that I don't really understand. So they fall in the category of these are arbitrary grinds. These are just added on to the content, so you're doing it, but there's not really a point to it. But to me, especially with the Chompy one, not necessarily, I get it with the Walk by the Wildy side. My main issue still with it was that there was no grace period for the people that had it, because technically you were locked out for at least 100 hours of consistent gameplay, like literally from release to whenever you can get it, because you can only do one event an hour, of course. Obviously, I know some count for a little bit more, but you also gotta sleep. So yeah, it takes at least 100 hours from you starting to ending the event, especially if you're already trimmed. So should have been a grace period on it, but whatever. But I get that one, right? Like, because you can't really grind it out. But Chompy Massacre is something you can grind out, and I'm all for grinding mechanics or grinding things, because there are rewards from the Chompy bird hunting, which are these stupid hats that you will probably never use. But I feel like that is just one thing that if I think about trim, you need to do some stupid grinds that suck, but they're not too bad. I mean, if you have that as if you want to remove that as a grind because you feel like it's arbitrary, why are you not removing something like Champion Scrolls, right? Like getting all Champion Scroll from the, well, Champion Scrolls eligible monsters. I don't get it. I mean, I think they both should be on there in my personal opinion, but hey ho. yeah, that's pretty much what they're going to be like flat out removing. But when they're going to be adding to comp are some requirements that are, I mean, they're very, very easy. And I mean, like, they don't even feel like proper comp requirements in my head. Like, they're good, but I'm like, oh, okay. One of them is doing all agility courses. That is something that I do think is a comp requirement, but I don't know, maybe, like, I don't know, in my mind, like, doing 10 laps or 50 laps of each of them feels way more like a comp requirement, because then you actually need to, like, grind it out. Power Plant 2 is being added, which is the second upgrade in the Druid upgrade store. If you don't know what it is, it's like the new El Kharid, like Garden of Kharid area where you can get those upgrades. I said from the start that it feels kind of weird. You need to unlock the entire shop for a comp requirement, and there's nothing for trim. But here we are. They're going to be adding Power Plant 2, which I don't understand. Why don't you just do Power Plant 4 so there's some sort of a grind with it? Because I feel like Power Plant 2, I think it's like 500 reputation, which is like 10 patches, which is like one farming run. Like, that's one of them where I'm like, that feels just very, very short. Another one that I do like is all puzzle clues and doing all tiers of clues at least once, which I think is good. I know some of the people in the glue community are going to be like, well, I wanted to get a 0 KC medium clue log. Well, get a 1 KC then. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We know you did the 0 thing. But the puzzle clues is pretty much doing every single type of puzzle in Clue Scroll. So that means you need to do a little bit more than just one clue to just get the RNG to get all the puzzles. When they're talking about trim completionists, there are some of these that I think should have been on there 100%. Tool belt. You need to have everything on your tool belt. Why wasn't this a thing? Like, that's such a weird requirement to not have on there. Same with 100% Zambi, 100% Arclays, 100% Telos are on there, so why not Zambi? It's the other enraged boss, so I'm not mad about it. Gooby Reputation is something that I do not really like, because Gooby Reputation you can get via the charms from Traveling Merchant or doing activities there, but one of the things there as well is doing it via raids, because you can get the raid reputation. I don't know 100% how that mechanic works there, because I believe there are other ways to get it, and if that's the case then it's not too bad, but I feel like that's one of those things, like especially if you need to do raids, because I don't think you do, but in case you do, my opinion on it is like, why you're moving one piece of group content where you need to leech and then you just add something else? Because trust me, unless you're in a clan or you're paying for leeching services or going into like those masters with the CC, which are very toxic by the way, if you didn't know, yeah, it kind of sucks, but hell, we'll have to wait and see. Maybe someone in the comment section can inform me on this one. Max reputation with the farming guild is something, in my opinion, that should have been on there as well. Nothing too special with that. Dark lore title is pretty much like Salty and Sandy, but for Priv, which was already there, but just wasn't on Comcape. Like, why? Don't understand why, but it is what it is. Same with all the relics, like having unlocked all the relics. You need to do all the mysteries, so why don't you need to unlock all the relics? Because you don't necessarily unlock all of them when you do all the mysteries. Well, you do, but you haven't added them all to it. But hey, all upgrades in Head's Oasis, which is pretty much like what the thingy used to be with all the crocodiles in the shop, but they have moved it from comp to trim pretty much. All, wait, what? What's all POP? Oh yeah, player-own ports. Yeah. So I wrote it down. I was like, what? All player-own port scrolls. Pretty much you need to do everything for player-own ports. And it's something I kind of want to be talking about in like my feedback kind of part of this video. I know it's a long video. I'm really, really sorry. Building all hidey holes, completely fine. And all blueprints, same with like tool belt. Why wasn't that a thing, right? Like that makes no sense. Move from comp to trim comp, a Druid sidekick, as I said before, Crocodile Hunter, which is a part of it, 10 times Wildy events, I guess, whatever. And one thing that leads us into the poll section is the effigy incubator is no longer a time gate, or they're gonna really, really reduce the time gate, because if you didn't know, with skipping tickets, with monthly reset tokens, I believe the requirement took like flat out a year to do, because it's a monthly event. That's just plain out dumb. Like, it's 100% dumb. But they're going to be moving that to the trim completioniscape, and that leads us to like the polls. They're asking to add Ripper Crew, Master Questscape, and Globetrotter to this as well. And Master Questscape is one that I 100% am against, mainly because I feel like it's a set goal for people as it is, right? Like, I get their way of thinking, right? Regular Questscape is on the regular Compcape, so Master Questscape, so the trimmed Questscape, let's call it, will be on Trimmedcape, which I understand, but Master Questscape has been such a pivotal goal for especially people that love lore, and is a flex in its own. When you see a Master Questscape, you're probably like, damn, first of all, it's a very nice cape, and two, you're like, they've been grinding. Like, I feel like it's not on the level of a Compcape, but it's nice. Like, it's really, really nice. And I feel like it would be devaluing Master Questscape a little bit. But then again, I wouldn't be, like, I get their way of thinking with it. And I wouldn't be super against, especially if they remove, like, the really stupid time locks, like Effigy Incubator, right? Same with Globetrotter. I think Globetrotter is a perfect continuation of Clues, because I feel like Clues were the biggest missing pieces of content on the comp and trim completion scape, because clues are a huge part of the game. Why weren't there any requirements to it? Like, I was thinking when we were discussing this, because there was a tweet before this as well, like, what would you want to see and not want to see? I was saying, like, would the shop be too much? Because I love clue scrolls, but I know not everyone does. Use Odd One, by the way. But the Globetrotter, I feel like, is such a perfect thing of, like, I've really grinded out clues, but not enough that I unlocked everything in that store. But Reaper Crew is something, again, that I am a bit indifferent to. I think in a perfect world, that definitely should be on there, because it shows that, you know, you've interacted with all the bosses. Like, that's such a trim/completionist thing to do, right? Like, I think it's fair to be on there. However, yet again, with Barbarian Assault, for a lot of people, it is gonna be an issue to get Solak or AOD or whatever. Like, I always use my friend as an example, because he's just a casual player, someone who just has a full-time job. Well, I mean, I work as well, but still, that has a full-time job, plays in his spare time, is a bit socially awkward, and would be locked out of content like this if it wasn't for me, right? Like, I'm a content creator. I know people who can carry me, leech me, whatever, but he generally would struggle with it otherwise. And I know with him, there are many, many more, because I get a lot of people just joining my Discord, link in the description, by the way, just asking, like, hey, can you help me with this group thing? Or, hey, can you help me with that group thing? Because a lot of people just are either scared to go into the big group thingies, which I understand, which you could say, like, oh, just get over it if you want to get your cape, sure, whatever. But at the same time, it's one of them things where I'm like, maybe add a Reaper Crew without Solak, AOD and raids, and yeah, I think those are all the group bosses, right? Oh, Farago as well. Just add a version of it without it, right? And don't call it Reaper Crew, don't give them the buffs, of course, but just have it like, I don't know, Solo Reaper or whatever. Just name it something funny. I don't think that you should be relying on other people to get your cape. As I said in the beginning, and this is one of them where it's a good example of that as well. But I feel like there's also some other things that I think just needs to be changed as well. I would love some scaling raids, especially if the Gooby reputation requires you to do raids. Raids is dead content, everyone hates it. Just scale it to like 2 people or more. Just like they did with Solak, and I think they should do that to AOD as well. Because if they scale it to 2 people or more, I feel like Reaper Crew should 100% be on there, because getting 1 or 2 friends together is way easier than getting 7 or 8 people together, in my personal opinion. And I think that would just be great in general, because that would make that content a lot more viable. Look, there's less people playing in groups anyway. If you want people to do that content, then just scale it down to 2 people or more. 3 people or more, whatever fits with the piece of content, but nothing more or nothing less than 3 people, if that makes sense. Or nothing more than 3 people, no 4, whatever. Anyway, same with ports, just half the length of time, bro. It takes like, I think, a year to complete everything in ports. Time gates suck, and I mean, with ports, I think it needs to be on there because of how big a piece of content it is, but just half the length of all the voyages and call it a day. Don't change anything about the success rate, just half the length, and we're good. Same with Globetrotter, completely added, nothing against it. And same with just the bosses, as I said, Reaper Crew. And one thing that I think should be on there as well, in my opinion, is Zuck normal mode and unlocking hard mode. Because it's one of them things where I'm like, it's kind of missing. You know what I mean? Like, you need to do kill capes for regular comp. So I feel like the regular progression of this would be Zuck capes for trim comp. Because, well, Zuck. I don't think you need to do hard mode, because I feel like hard mode is really, really a step up from normal mode. But I think normal mode should be on there. Add some PVM to it. I'm not against PVM on it, but it's just one of them things where I'm like, make it make sense, right? Because you can just go into Zuck, die a lot of times, and just get your cape. And when it comes to, as I said, the bigger group bosses, it's a little bit more difficult to do so. But these are just some of my opinions and just an overview of what they're talking about, right? Like, just to summarize, I'm just someone who thinks that completionist and trim completionist, just purely because it's a cosmetic cape and it's an achievement for yourself, should not be locked behind too many people. As I said, if you need to get 1 or 2 friends together, I'm not fully against it. It's still not preferable, but hey-oh, it is what it is. It's, I guess, just certain content just that has to be on there just requires that, right? But when you start needing bigger groups like raids or AOD, whatever, it's one of them things where I'm like, no, this should not be on there. In an ideal world, yes, I do think that all minigames should be on there, right? Like, I genuinely do think that in an ideal world, all minigames should be on the comp or trimmed completion escape. Maybe with some reworks, of course, but we don't live in an ideal world. We don't have minigames active like they do in old school RuneScape. If they did, then I think, yeah, for sure, 100% add them to it. But we have seen that completion escape or trim completion escape will not make minigames active, so unfortunately, they shouldn't be on there in my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much my opinion overall. So if you did enjoy this video, definitely leave a like. As I said, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Tell me, are you a globetrotter if you made it to the end of the video? Subscribe if you're new, and my name is Chevalric, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Goodbye.